The Dees survive a thriller against the Suns. The Dogs get up thanks to some more Bont brilliance, and the Lions make it 5 straight against the wasteful Blues. This is the round so far, brought to you by AAMI. Hello and welcome to the round so far, brought to you by AAMI. I'm Riley Beveridge. I'm joined, as always, by Kane Cornes. Kane, it's been a massive round 8 so far, so let's get straight into it. We'll start with our big story. It came at Heritage Bank Stadium, where Melbourne held on by 5 points in a thriller against Gold Coast.
What a game it was, and the contest in this was amazing. There's McPherson having the opportunity to even the scores with under 20 seconds to go in this game. That drifts wide, and that spells the end for the Gold Coast, albeit they get one more opportunity, but Viney sits under this ball with courage and marks it. There was some extraordinary individual and team performances in this. In terms of the Gold Coast, they lost, but it was almost a coming-of-age game for them because they stood up in a finals-like game.
Especially without their captain, Touk Miller, who wasn't playing. Of course, Noah Anderson had a big impact. Scores were level at three-quarter time, but Melbourne, as they so often have this season, just kicked away late.
So let's take a look at some of these last quarter moments. Petrarca was enormous. He's got a great record against the Gold Coast, so he slots that. And look at the score there. You're thinking, OK, this is a big moment with Van Rooyen and Ballard. Now, Ballard is stretched off the ground. How are you seeing this one?
He doesn't have eyes for footy, so I reckon he could be in a bit of trouble. And because of such the severity of the injury, I think he could be looking at maybe even being referred directly to the tribunal, I reckon.
Anderson was career best game, probably 37. He had 10 clearances. Rose's kick 4. There he goes. We've got game on here. So they've got to make this ground Heritage Bank. They've got to make it a fortress. But in the end, it was Melbourne too good in the last quarter after being even at three-quarter time. And look at their record. The fittest, the best last quarter team in the competition. They've won all of them against good opposition. The Western Bulldogs in round 1, Brisbane, Sydney. Doesn't matter who they've played against. They've won all the last quarters. And they lost the highly regarded Darren Burgess a few years ago after the premiership as their high-performance man. So that's a significant record. We saw them in pre-season playing the games, doing running after, and it's no surprises that they're getting the result. But what a game it was. Stewie Dew would be disappointed because on all the metrics, contested footy, scores from stoppage, in and around the contest, they actually outpitted Melbourne.
There was a massive moment in the last quarter of this game, and that's where we find our moment for round 8 so far. Now, have a look at this. The ball's being taken. It's a kick in from the goal square. It's an 8-point game at this stage. Melbourne then gets a free kick from the top of the goal square because of this incident that happened on the wing. Now, the broadcast obviously didn't have shots of exactly what had happened because it was so far off the ball. We've taken a look behind the goal.
Exclusive vision.
It is, and it's actually Ben King who gives away the free kick on Harry Petty. It looked like it was Levi Casbolt, but Ben King comes in here, bangs him off the ball. I'll tell you what, is that worth a free kick off the top of the goal square?
No, it's not, but players have to realise you can't get away with any of that stuff. As soon as an umpire, and there's 4 of them out there, see the opposition go to ground and the contact was unnecessary, the contact, they're always going to pay the free kick. Now, they will say that is the right call, and the position for the free kick was where the ball is, top of the goal square. Game over. You lose the game by 5 points. Ben King would be feeling pretty ordinary about himself right now.
He definitely would be. We'll head to GMHBA Stadium where Geelong snuck over the line against Adelaide. Pretty spirited Crows side, but the Cats just had too much in the end.
They're just hard to play against Adelaide. They just hang in there. There's Blixarves. He's having a good season after signing a 2-year contract extension. Rankin there with his brilliance. So these are some of the last quarter moments in this game. And at stages you thought, well, Geelong at home, they're just going to run away with that. Radaglia did an amazing job on Taylor Walker. I thought he got the better of that duel. And look at Rankin take on Duncan here. This is not what you need at 32 with a lot of miles in the legs. But Buse was sensational coming across here to save the day on keys at a critical stage of this game. And then Geelong go down and score. But, I mean, they're the best team in the comp, aren't they, Geelong?
Yeah, I think they are at the moment. Them and Collingwood, certainly. But this is a real 2-goal swing because if either Rankin or Keys had to kick that goal, it would have been a 6-point margin. It goes up the other end. Jack Henry kicks it, turns it into an 18-point ball game. That is game over. The big story coming out of this one was Geelong captain Patrick Dangerfield exiting the game in the 3rd quarter with a hamstring injury. He spoke after the match and said he didn't think it was a bad one, but it definitely was a hamstring injury.
And he was a big blow because it was as good as I've seen him play this year, and that's saying something because his last month has been outstanding. He was in all-Australian form, as we spoke about last week, and to be subbed out just after half-time was a big blow. And Nick Murray was also subbed out for the Crows, which hurt them a little bit. He had the job on Jeremy Cameron, but Hinge actually went across and did a pretty good job on Jeremy Cameron.
Max Holmes was the man to step into the midfield when Patrick Dangerfield went down. So often played on the wing, but he was great. 5 clearances and 8 tackles to go with 22 touches and a pretty crucial goal at the end.
So it was last year that Patrick Dangerfield said this guy has Judd-like tendencies, and you thought, oh, hang on, that's a big statement. And he missed the grand final, and we know all of that. But then you've seen him go inside, more so in the last fortnight, and be able to give them a point of difference. So his leg speed and his power, and underrated is his ability to win clearance and critical contests. And then he's always been able to do that with penetration. So with Dangerfield going out, he stepped up, and he's going to have to continue to do that because they play Richmond on Friday night.
We'll go to Manuka Oval now, where the Giants were 33 points down at three-quarter time against the Dogs. And they kicked the first 4 goals of the last term to get it back to 8 points.
Game. Really strange game. Look at them storm home here. Green was unbelievable. So Himmelberg kicks this one from outside 50. The move to put him into the ruck to start the last quarter was influential because he was doing nothing forward but had an impact forward. But it was Aaron Norton who kicked the last 2 sealing goals to the Western Bulldogs. Didn't have a big night, but at the critical stages, it was Norton here, as you're seeing, who was able to ice the game. But there's some good performances from a couple of Giants, but early on, they just butchered the ball. Their kicking efficiency, they went at below 55% on the night, and they just wanted to over-handball the ball. They had plus 34 handballs in the first quarter, and once the conditions became a bit more problematic with the rain, that was a recipe for turnover. But credit to Adam Kingsley and the Giants, they did hang in there and didn't get blown out.
And they didn't get blown out without their captain as well, Toby Green, a late withdrawal with an ankle injury. This game had 2 absolute stars in the midfield, Marcus Bontempelli and Tom Green going toe-to-toe. Bont finished with 32 and 14 clearances, but Tom Green had 38 and 3 goals.
Yeah, and they actually matched up on each other from time to time in this game because Bontempelli just started on fire. I mean, the season that he's having is extraordinary. Nick Dacos, we're all talking about, but I think Marcus Bontempelli has been the most influential player in the game so far this year, and hopefully the umpires, and I'm sure they are taking note of this. 14 clearances, as you said. I think he had 14 ground balls, 25 contested possessions. And this is the next Bontempelli. This is Tom Green. He's a young man making big waves in this competition. Kicked 3 goals after coming into the game just having kicked 1. So if he can add that to his game like he did tonight, look out, he will be the complete midfielder. I want to highlight Marcus Bontempelli and what he is doing this year. So his previous highest clearance was 11. He's done that 3 times already this season. So career high 3 times in this season, 14 tonight, 12 against Port Adelaide in gather round earlier on and 11 against Richmond in tricky conditions as well. The season he's putting together is unbelievable.
And 3 in the last 5 weeks as well, which is pretty incredible. We'll head to Optus Stadium now, where Fremantle got the win against Hawthorn. This was all about their efficiency in the first half. They had 14 scores from 19 entries to half-time.
So the Hawks just couldn't defend tonight, and it was good to see Fremantle actually moving the ball with some freedom and a bit more dare and getting some one-on-one opportunities to their forward. So you're right, you don't speak about Fremantle being effective and efficient going inside 50. Well, they were tonight. Even Big Darcy just wheeling around and going, not knowing exactly what he's going to kick to, but he knows there's going to be even numbers ahead of the ball. So, I mean, I'm not sure what to take out of teams that play against West Coast and Hawthorn and North Melbourne. You don't want to read too much into it other than they did what they needed to do. They got some of their better players back in form. It was Jackson's best game for the club, 24 and a couple of goals. And Andrew Brayshaw, off the back of his extraordinary season last year, has been flat. He returned with a vengeance tonight.
Tell you what Hawthorn didn't need, and that was the ill discipline, particularly in the first half, and particularly from their senior players. So here's some incidents. All 3 of these led to goals. This is from Sam Frost and James Sicily, who are 2 of their more experienced goals.
Yeah, he's got to be one of the most frustrating players in the game, Frosty, because some of the stuff he does can be unbelievable, and this is not good enough from Sicily, the captain. I don't care if the free kick is not there, it's the 50-metre penalty after and the body language. So look at the descent here towards the umpire. He just missed it there, but I can tell you it was there and it was the right call to play 50. And then Frost here, there's no need to do that. That goes from a mark 80 metres out to a shot straight in front and a goal for a miss. So Sam Mitchell will be frustrated with a couple of his leaders.
He would be frustrated with their second half fade-outs as well, because we saw it again tonight. This has happened a fair bit throughout the season. Now, they're one of the worst second-half teams in the comp, which is what you're going to get from a young side, but some of these are pretty unacceptable.
Yeah, it's pretty damning, isn't it? And you're right, when you've got a young side, what did you expect? So when you make those changes, you're going to have enthusiasm and energy and youth to start the first half, and it was the same last week against the Western Bulldogs. But in the end, you just can't compete for long enough against seasoned sides, and we've seen some absolute blowouts. That's not for a game.
Yeah.
That's in
just the
second half.
Yeah.
And that's where the questions arise over the Hawthorn list changes that they made at the end of the last year, because long way to go in this season, and Hawks fans have almost had enough, I assume.
Now, the former captain for Fremantle, Nat Fyfe, started as the sub. Fremantle said on Thursday, when they brought him back from 6 weeks out from a foot injury, that he would be the sub. He had a pretty good impact, though, when he came on.
Perfect game to come on as a sub, isn't it? There's no sting in this game. We've just shown the last quarter numbers from Hawthorn. I mean, there's no pressure on this. He's able to waltz through there for an easy stoppage goal and get himself into it. So, perfect use of him. I think it's good coaching to ease him back in. Now, the talk has been they're going to play in midfield, which seems a bit of a panic move, because all pre-season they told us he was going to play forward, but their midfield numbers have been poor. So I'll wait and see how they manage him. They're going to have to be really careful, because he's shown that he can't hold up to consistent footy, and his body will let him down.
All right, we'll head to our AAMI clangers now. Who covers clangers? AAMI does. Kane, I'm not sure if you're at Marvel Stadium on Friday night, but this fox certainly was. How's this? Captured from the press box after the game, just a fox strolling across
How did that get
Marvel
in?
Stadium turf. And then it went down the umpires race, which I'm not sure where the umpires were at this stage, but quite worrying there.
Cunning things. What about the Tassie announcement this week?
Yeah.
Have a listen to the Premier of Tasmania, Jeremy Rockcliffe. He doesn't quite know who the AFL CEO is.
The AFL, Gillian, indeed, the 18 presidents.
Jeremy, you had one job. Gillen, not Gillian.
Oh, it's very funny there. All right, we'll head to the MCG now, where Richmond, I'll tell you what, they were made to work for it against West Coast. Have a look at this. It's a 5-point game at this stage when Dion Prestia kicks 3 straight goals.
Yeah, he kicked the hat-trick, Dion Prestia, and hadn't kicked a goal in this season so far. He'd been managed at times, and they used him in a bit of a different role, which I actually like in that forward role, and he spoke about that after the game. But he's always been a really good ball user, and he got on the end of it at a critical stage, actually.
Yeah.
Like the full-time score looks like Richmond won comfortably, but with 5 minutes to go in the third quarter, scores were really even, and eventually Richmond were too good. But like the Fremantle game, not exactly sure how much to take out of it and what it means for Richmond, because they essentially played a waffle side.
All right, we'll head to our Saturday star now, and it is Shai Bolton. He needed this because he hadn't really had the best of seasons. He only kicked 1 goal in the last 3 weeks, but he had 31 touches, 3 goals, 2 goal assists and 7 clearances.
He's just so watchable. I love watching him play. Every time he's on the screen, you want to watch and see what he does, because last season was enormous. All-Australian, had 84 shots at goal last year and was inaccurate 43-41 he kicked, but hadn't had the same scoreboard impact this year. Today he did. Some of this stoppage stuff and his ability to get up the ground and then get back inside 50 for a matchup that he likes, equally as good on the ground as he is in the air, and it was great to see him back in form, and Richmond needed him to be back in form. If they can get him and Martin going, which they've threatened to do at small stages throughout the year, then they're going to be pretty potent inside 50, particularly when Lynch comes back.
Okay, and I want to ask you about something that happened post-game. Now, earlier this week, you said that you didn't think Tim Taranto was a top 150 player in the comp. Damien Hardwick, Richmond coach, was asked about it after the match.
Oh, look, I know Kane obviously really well, and you guys know how the media works. We're a really big club, and you know what happens? He doesn't generally believe that comment, but what he does is he says it to get clicks. That's how the media work. Surprise, sort of thing. So,
What has he meant overall since he's joined the club?
oh, it's been an incredible one, really. Actually, Kane said he wasn't worth pick 6 as well. He's come out of 3 times premiership player. Get better, Wig. Come on.
So that second comment was about Dion Prestia and the trade that they made with Gold Coast a couple of years back. You right of reply?
I spoke to him this morning, actually. I spoke to Damien Hardwick this morning, so I was a little bit surprised that he went public with that, but I just explained that I didn't say that comment for the sake of it. And if you looked at it in isolation and you read headlines, it does look a bit confronting, but it was part of an extended chat on radio on Friday morning. It's interesting that prior to that game, Champion Data had Taranto ranked 120 in the competition. Yeah. So I'm not sure Damien Hardwick is challenging Champion Data's numbers and saying they are for clicks. I think they paid an extraordinary price to get him, But top 50 in the competition is still pretty good. It's top 15, 20%, which I tried to explain to Damien Hubbock today. But what he does very well is support his players, and his loyalty that he's got for his players, I admire.
Before we move on from this game, I want to talk to you about Oscar Allen, the West Coast forward. Didn't play a game last year with a foot injury, but he's been fantastic so far this season. Kicked 4 of West Coast's first 6 goals.
Probably going under the radar with the season that he's having, considering the team that he's playing in and the lack of help that he's getting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. If it wasn't for him, they lose this game by 20 goals. And early on, like looking here, he kicked 4 of their first... I don't know, 6 goals, which is amazing. The service, the lack of inside 50s, the lack of opportunities. Darling's having a poor year, so he's got no help from a key position point of view down there to help him out. So I love it. He's a young player that I'm looking forward to watching for the next 10 years. Just hopefully it's not in a side this poor for much longer.
There's only been 2 players that have kicked multiple goals in every game so far this season, him and Jeremy Cameron. So it's pretty good company for him to be alongside. Marvel Stadium on Friday night, where Brisbane got the job done against Carlton. Kane, remarkably, 100 points Brisbane scored, 85 from Blues turnovers.
This is amazing. I haven't seen a team butcher the ball as badly as this year. So their highest conceded score from turnovers last year was 64 points. They've conceded 85 in this game. And that's stuff from Curnow. I mean, that is just lazy, arrogant football. That from Wiedering, a leader of the club. A minute 25 to go in the first quarter, and he's trying to kick a dart through the middle of the ground. That cost him a goal. This cost easy, unpressured kick outside Curnow. Where's that ball going to? That's got to go boundary, not central. I mean, it's a pretty basic decision to make, and that cost them a goal. Easy handle there from Young. Bailey walks into goal. So I think this is the biggest story out of round 8 is the demise of Carlton. Whilst the win-loss record doesn't look dire, even when they were undefeated, you question the way that they were going about it. They'd lost their real strength from stoppage, and who in their side other than Sard, and we'll get to Sard now and what the opposition are doing with him, are good ball users and are going to hurt you when they've got the footy in their hands. And it's a real shame because they've got 2 of the biggest key forwards in their prime going to waste.
Well, this is Adam Sard, as you mentioned. What Brisbane did throughout the entire night really well, we want to highlight a couple of them here, is the attention they gave Sard when he was trying to overlap and trying to get on the footy. There's instances here where the Brisbane opponent who's defending Sard isn't even looking at the ball.
Yeah, it's great.
He's just looking directly at the player.
I loved it, and we don't see enough of it because everyone wants to zone now. No one wants to take accountability for the opposition. No one wants to sacrifice their own game. And this isn't one player. It's McCarthy there. Next time it'll be Hipwood. Next time it'll be Cameron. Next time it'll be Gunston, whoever's near him, because they know Sard is the most damaging ball user in the side, and the numbers would say that. If they can limit his influence, they're never going to stop him because he'll be able to take kick-outs and get possessions. And that he had 23, but I thought that was a sign that Brisbane have matured and they're willing to sacrifice their own game, only for a brief minute, for the betterment of the team. Terrific coaching from Chris Fagan, big tick.
And the concentration it takes to always be aware of him. The best on ground, though, is Josh Dunkley. He was absolutely incredible across the entirety of the night. 33 disposals, 11 marks, 13 tackles.
Yeah, I think Chris Fagan said after the game, it's one of the best games you'll ever see, and I agree, because the numbers are huge, but also the defensive job he did on the Brownlow medalist.
Yeah.
Now, Cripps has got to work on this because he's been exposed 3 times this year. Dawson got him against Adelaide, still got him in the second half against St Kilda, and now Dunkley has got him. And there is a belief amongst the competition when you play Carlton, if you can stop Cripps, you can stop Carlton winning the game, and the record would say the same in terms of Patrick Cripps. And when he gets under 20 disposals, more often than not, Carlton will lose.
Yeah, they've only won 1 of their last 8 games since 2021 when Cripps has had fewer than 20 touches. We wanted to highlight last week Carlton's next 6 weeks. They're 1 game through that now, 0-1. It spells some trouble. Bulldogs, Collingwood, Sydney, Melbourne and then Essendon. That's a tough run. This is going to make or break their year, and they've already made a bad start.
Yeah, we put this on the radar last week. So first opportunity at home, fail. OK, you're going to stay in Melbourne for a long time. You only travel once in this stretch, and you're going to get a mix of Marvel and the MCG, but it's all going to be against really good opposition. So I said this time last week, in a month, we'll know exactly where Carlton sit. I got real fears that they're a bottom 6 team.
Yeah, it's worrying for them. All right, Kane, well, thanks to Virgin Australia, the official airline of the AFL. 3 lucky footy fans will have a chance to win a return flight plus accommodation to see their AFL team play interstate. Tickets for the big game and $500 spending money are also included, and you can bring a friend along for the ride. But here's the extra special part, Kane. The winners will be seated next to an AFL player during the game. To enter, simply tell us in 25 words or less who you would want to take on this incredible Virgin Australia experience and why. Who are you taking to a game?
Yeah, I might take Jason Horne-Francis. Sit together and we'll chew the fat and we'll just sit quietly and have a moment.
Toby Green for me, I reckon.
Good choice.
All right, we'll get to our remaining round 8 fixtures, and Jason Horne-Francis will be a man in action to start the Sunday slate of games. He's playing against the Bombers. Collingwood against Sydney, and North Melbourne finishes against St Kilda. But it's at the MCG where we will find our Canes question for this week. What would a loss mean for the Swans? What would happen if they went to 3-5 on the season?
It makes it hard. I'm not ready to call their season because I've got too much faith in John Longmire as coach, and I've got too much faith for him to come with a ferocity like we hadn't seen. And there was glimpses that they started to turn it around last week against the Giants. Their contested footy was great. Shouldn't have lost that game. They will be angry. And I think they're going to be a bit harder to beat than what a lot of people have.
And you
suggesting.
tipped him as well, didn't you?
I did tip him, but don't look at my tipping because it's
We might take you up on that next week.
Really bad.
We'll look at it next week.
Really bad.
Thanks for your help tonight.
Thanks, mate.
Appreciate it. We'll see you next week.